She's telepathic, call it black girl magic. Yeah, she scares the government. Deja vu, a tough man. We go missing by the hundreds. The camera loves us, Oscar doesn't. They want us in the kitchen, kill our sons with lynchings. We get loud about it. Oh, now we're the bitches. Look at what they did to my sister. Last century, last week. They put her body in a jar and forget her.
What's good?
All right. Welcome to our seventh episode
Let's get to the bottom of it.
of Revolution Ready.
All
right, Becca. So what we talking about today? What's our topic?
Becca here, Shani
Oh,
B.
yes.
Today we're going to get to the bottom of it. We have a couple of beloved guests today. Okay. So today we are going to talk about, let's get to the bottom of it. We have Miss Donna, we have Mr. Brandon, and then we also have our own beloved Laura here today from Revolution Ready, who will give us a little bit of insight about Thanksgiving holiday as well as their culture they would like to share with us today.
From a native perspective.
From a native perspective. It's coming directly from the horse's mouth, no offense. And then we will also kind of give an opportunity to ask questions if you guys want to ask questions. And we'll ask them a couple questions to kind of see how we can tie in together as far as U.S. culture. So, but you know how we always start out with bootlicker of the week.
Oh, yes. The
But
bootlicker.
this
You know what? I
week-
got an idea.
What?
We don't have a bootlicker, but we can talk about this beautiful sweater that you have on.
Right. We don't have a bootlicker this week because black people didn't get on our nerves this week. So we ain't got nobody to call out. So we not going to go fishing for a bootlicker this week. Praise them. Hallelujah. Yes. We don't no bootlicker this week. We all been on one accord.
But what is a bootlicker for our audience members who don't know?
So the bootlicker is the skin folk that is not our kinfolk that decides to submit to white supremacy and put down their own community or just be in controversial disagreement with their own community because of probably their own selfish gain.
So kind of like a Uncle Ruckus or
yeah.
Uncle Tom, Ben Carson, I hear. Oh, man. Okay.
So, but this week we are free of those from our recollection and our knowledge. Yes. But we do have a Blacktastic for the week.
Yes.
And then we'll get on to this sweater.
Blacktastic of the week is going to none other than Letitia James. Letitia James is the first African American and female Attorney General for the state of New York.
Give her some.
All right.
Yes, we need to give that sister a hand.
Shout out to you, Miss James.
Yes, Miss James.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sis.
We done with Miss James?
I was just going to talk about some of the things that's on her agenda. You know, how she wants to definitely shed light to the Trump Foundation and organization, and she has vowed to investigate all aspects. So I'm definitely proud to see an African-American woman and just a female in that position and who's going to hold people accountable. So, yes, shout out to Letitia James.
Shout out to Letitia James. So, as we know, it's Black Friday, Black Weekend, everybody trying to get out the red. So, we want to give a shout out to all the businesses here at the Sherman Phoenix. We have Jamila Riley. We have Exotic Apparel out here today. We had a couple of young men who came in. Cameron is one of our authors. He wrote a book called Why Bully Me.
Oh.
Let's take a look.
Let's look at that.
Yes.
It's called Why Bully Me. So we want to go ahead to his website and order his book. I believe it is Prodigy3.com. You can go to his website or you can go to Amazon.com and order his book. He's 14 years old and he is thebomb.com. Make sure that you are spending money with black businesses this week and trying to circulate some money. and bring them out of the red. And shout out to our indigenous people who have businesses too this
Yes.
week. Don't forget about them. And I'm pretty sure they have awesome apparel, and I definitely know jewelry for sure.
For sure. And I can't wait to read that book to my daughter tonight. This is definitely going to be a great story time.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Reading
Why
that.
bully me?
Why bully me?
Yep.
Definitely. Okay.
So after giving our shout outs,
drum roll.
Jay Riley,
Oh, yes.
we have Laura here. And Laura, a lot of people may not know, but a lot of the work that it gets done for Revolution Ready is going right through this mine right here. Laura helps us with a lot of things in the background with Revolution Ready, and she is our sister that is going to share with us about her indigenous tribe. Right,
So, Laura,
Kiko?
welcome.
Yes. So yes,
Thank you.
yeah. So my father's tribe was Kickapoo. So they are directly from this area. Started in Michigan. We're pushed. How much do you want me to go into it right now?
Just go.
Just go. Okay.
We learned.
Just go. All right. So. So they were in the upper Michigan area. And then when the colonizers came, they...
Who are the colonizers?
So when the Europeans came to take over our land, they tried to push the Kickapoo down and take over their land. Now, some of them migrated into this area here, into Wisconsin and Illinois, Indiana, which is where my father settled for a while. Eventually, after the War of 1812 and all of that went down, they were pushed further down into Texas and Mexico. They were granted land in Mexico, well, actually in New Mexico, but which is now Texas. But eventually that was taken from them as well. So with that happening, an interesting thing that I've kind of come to grips with in the past year or so is I was born in Piedras Negras, Mexico, which is in Cuy, Mexico, where the land that is still belonging to indigenous people is. And then I was brought to the United States 3 years after I was born. I was adopted. I am my father's bloodline. But in that, so my children are considered, I'm considered an immigrant. My children are considered first generation to be born in the United States on this land. That was originally our land. How are you first generation immigrants in a land that belonged to your people? Like, come on now, that don't make no sense. I'm just saying. So as far as Thanksgiving goes, as I've educated myself more and more on the history of Thanksgiving and how things went, because it was not what they teach us in school. You know, it was literally a celebration of the slaughtering of people. You know, we've, in my family, still celebrate Thanksgiving, except it's a day of remembrance. It's a national day of mourning. And we make it a point to discuss those issues, to teach people about the culture, to teach them about what actually happened. Yeah,
So
I know
wait.
that Donna knows a lot more of the...
So wait, you mean to tell me Thanksgiving is not this big feast that the Native and the Americans got together and just, you know, made good?
One big happy family.
I mean,
It wasn't one big happy family?
well, there might have been some, you know, cohorts in there, but it was literally to celebrate the slaughtering of the Native people. It would be like us getting together now and throwing a party when Joseph Mensa gets hired at another police department.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, it wasn't,
That's disrespectful.
yeah. Like that would be, we would not stand for that now. There would be no way you would get all of us that have been, you know, supporting the movement to go celebrate anything that that man does. But they slaughtered our people and then said, hey, let's get together and feast.
So, what are some other holidays that like you would like to shed light on that you guys do, like something that you would like to share,
That, ooh.
or like what's something that's significant from your tribe? You know,
That's significant from my tribe.
yeah.
So our tribe, the Kickapoos, were wanderers. So they migrated everywhere.
Okay.
My parents were migrant workers. That's actually how my parents met. They traveled every year, traveled following the harvest season. So, and that's how, like, that ability, they were known for their ability to be able to adapt to the situation and continue to thrive in any situation. So that would probably be, like, that's something I see totally in my father, and his ability to adapt to any situation. It's something that I think just kind of runs in our blood, that, you always figure out a way to get through things. You always figure out a way to manifest your destiny and continue to carry on your traditions.
What skill set was it that kind of kept you guys going?
So Kickapoos were really big into farming. So the women farmed, the men hunted, and that's how they would keep their villages going. They would keep their community going. Is no matter where they went, they were able to immediately start setting up another way of life. Immediately start farming, regenerating, and when they needed to, because they were travelers, they easily picked up. And back then, walked. Horses weren't even introduced until the Europeans came over. So they literally walked across the lands to get to where they were going, and still persevered. And when they started to push, the religion and ways of the colonizers on our people, rather than try to assimilate, they left, and they constantly just, they went to another area to try to keep those traditions. So really just the importance on tradition and family, I think, is the biggest thing that, like, my father has instilled with me from the Kickapoo tribe.
What is the religion of the Kickapoo tribe?
The actual, so you know what? I'm going to have to be honest and tell you that I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know, like, growing up, we were Catholic, but that was, I've always heard how that was imposed upon us.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have anything?
Yeah. Just from a retrospective viewpoint, like, how is it to, like, be in a position where you're basically acknowledging a day for the slaughter of your people? Like, how does that feel? Because it's a national recognized holiday. Like, how does that feel?
It's surreal. The whole time from October through November is really kind of surreal, because we go into this time where, there's Halloween, and you can go into the store and buy a traditional Indian dress. And, people are dressing up as Indians, or even, I have a lot of Hispanic culture, so people are painting their faces like Dia de los Muertos, or, and that's all, it's sacred to our people. That's not, that's the way that we show our culture. There's, ceremonial dress has meanings and different meanings through each culture, and those things are earned. So for people to just be able to go out and purchase a costume and say, oh, I'm an Indian for, the whole period is just sad. It's very surreal, and it's hard sometimes to, realize the amount of racism and bias that's still out there from people. It's very surreal. It's very, very surreal. And to have people gather and, celebrate Thanksgiving like it's this wonderful, happy thing, and only know the perspective that you're taught in school, which in so many cases is not what actually happened. And then to try to tell people and educate people on what's actually happened and the truth, and people think you're completely lying. They think you've made it up, that there's no way that that's possibly true. They learned something else in school. It's a hard period. It's difficult. But in the same time, I'm extremely grateful that I am where I am. I'm extremely grateful to my parents. I'm extremely grateful for all of the things that I still have, and in preparing for this, all the things that I still have to learn actually about my culture. I'm super excited about it.
That's awesome.
So thank you.
That's awesome. We have Donna. Is it Yahola? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. How you doing today, Donna?
Welcome.
I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thanks.
So can you tell us a little bit about what nation or tribe you are from?
Sure. I would like to introduce myself in my language. I'm Ojibwe and Oneida, and I will just introduce myself. Bidanaquad Duquesne Dishnakaz, Aji Jacques and Dodem, Manitowoc and Dunjaba, Mushkazibing, Minawa, Haudenosaunee. So what I said was my name's Coming Cloud Woman, and I'm from the Crane Clan, and I'm Bad River Ojibwe. I live in Manitowoc, and I'm part Oneida as well. So I would just like to tell you a little bit about. I heard. What's her name again? Lisa?
Laura.
I'm sorry. Laura, sorry. Talking a little bit about today's stereotypes and, all the shameful images that Thanksgiving has brought into the world, how it just morphed into this Thanksgiving myth is what I call it. So you have to put it in historical context first. So what the history, it started with Thomas Jefferson. He actually he was asked to have a national Thanksgiving Day when because he was president, or he was involved in politics between 1775 and 1783. So that was 1776 is when the United States of America became a nation, right? So during the birth of the nation, that's when Sarah Josepha, who wrote Mary Had a Little Lamb, I think, she was writing letters to Jefferson and asking him to have a national Thanksgiving Day. But he didn't want to, because he felt that there was a separation between church and state. And he felt that Thanksgiving was a religious thing, and he didn't want to impose spiritual practices on the nation. And so let's go from there and then go to the next time that Thanksgiving was visited in the country's history, and that was in 1863. In 1863, Abe Lincoln, he declared the fourth, one of the Thursdays, I'm not sure if it's the fourth, I don't want to be incorrect, but anyway, in November, a Thursday in November to be Thanksgiving, declare that a Thanksgiving holiday. And it was in response to the horrors of the Civil War. And I think, he was just saying we should be grateful for everything we have, and instead of fighting. And so then he established that. But it wasn't until 1941 when Franklin Delano Roosevelt made it a national holiday, where he declared it a day of Thanksgiving, but then it wasn't really celebrated year after year. From 1863 to 1941 was FDR made it a national holiday, and people started celebrating Thanksgiving. So now let's put the Indians into the mix. Okay, so that's the American history portion of how Thanksgiving was established. So then there were a lot of feasts between so-called pilgrims, settlers, and Indians, and some of them were, I'm sure, there were feasts that were just fine. There were, happy, but then there were some feasts where there was division, and where they were celebrating genocide. Maybe they won a war and they killed a bunch of Indians. I heard that one. And so there's truth to that, but yet what it morphed into in the American public schools is this whole idea of Indians and pilgrims settling down to have Thanksgiving dinner and thanking the Indians for helping them get through their first winter. Okay. So we're talking about something that happened in 1621. And then you fast forward to 1863. And so I don't know where they made that connection that Thanksgiving has something to do with that first Indians and settlers helping the settlers get through the winter. It's a myth. Thanksgiving is a myth, okay? As far as with the imagery of the Pilgrims and the Indians go, okay? The Thanksgiving celebration day itself is not a myth. That's true. But what American education has done in their history books was make it about Indians and Pilgrims getting along. And you know why? The reason why is because if they had to tell you in the history books that they were talking about genocide, then the United States, the people, the government, and people who write the textbooks would have to admit that we committed genocide as a nation on our native people. So they didn't want to look at that. So that's how you got this myth of the Indians and the Pilgrims coming together. I'm an educator. I've been an educator since 1991. I taught college classes at UW-Whitewater. I taught contemporary Indian issues for teachers and some history stuff, Act 31 stuff, which is, so we've done a lot of, we looked at Thanksgiving. I had my students in college look at Thanksgiving. And so what the resources that I use when I taught was a book called The Lies My Teacher Told Me, and that's by James Loewen, and it's Loewen. And then there's another book, The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. Gives you a more humanistic and truthful version of what really happened in America. So, because America don't want to look at that. America don't want to look at the genocide and the bad things we did. They still don't. They still don't want to look at that.
But it's there in plain sight. Like, everything that you see, like, is there in plain sight, especially the names that you mentioned, like Andrew Jackson. I mean, for those of the people who don't know what Andrew Jackson was famous for, he wasn't famous for giving 20 million, Native Americans blankets. He was, he gave them blankets, but infested with measles and smallpox.
Yeah, smallpox.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we've deconstructed the myth of Thanksgiving, and what's really harmful is in the school systems, that public school systems where they promote that stereotypical myth that the Indians and the Pilgrims got along and the Indians were so helpful and we helped, but they missed that whole piece about that opened up the door to genocide. And it was not as as peachy as the books want to tell you. So I wanted to give you, if anybody's out there listening, there's also lots of YouTube videos. If you just type in The Truth About Thanksgiving Day, you can sift through there and you can find different videos that also say and explain the same things that I'm telling you about. But the most dangerous thing is I don't like that when they dress up like Indians and Pilgrims, they make the kids do that. And then they make, fake headdresses and they paint dresses that look real ugly and those are supposed to be the Indians. And it's like our beautiful culture, our beautiful headdresses that mean something, with eagle feathers are they're just minimized into something that the kids are playing around with in school. And it just becomes, I don't even know the word.
Almost.
A mockery. Thank you.
Donna said, hold on. First of all, that's ugly.
Yeah. I said it.
Gotta give it up.
Oh my.
I ain't mad. Wow. So, Donna, we thank you. We're gonna have you stick around for some more questions.
Sure.
Next up, we have Brandon Yellowbird Stevens, who is co-chair of Oneida Nation, and he's gonna give us a little bit of background about Oneida Nation and Thanksgiving.
Thanks for having me on. And just a little background about Oneida Nation. We sit adjacent to Green Bay, Wisconsin, on a 65,500 square acre reservation. And so I'll go into a little bit about that. But there's about 17,400 members that live on or near the reservation. We're actually all over the world too. We're pretty transient, but we originated from upstate New York around Syracuse, and so that kind of leads into some of the Western encroachment that originated early on when the settlers started to come and occupy upstate New York and pushed us to present day Wisconsin. And so, a lot of farces as far as education, and it really. It does society, but more so, our next generations a disservice, not teaching them the history, accurate history, perspective history as well, in our schools. Everything that we get, what Donna was talking about, it's from a Eurocentric lens. The Europeans came here, the Europeans conquered the Indians, the European established the 13 colonies, the Europeans, they created the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation. And so it's from that Western European lens. And so whenever you're teaching our kids from only that perspective, that really supports a fundamental white supremacist education system. And so when you're learning from that perspective, it's not about, hoods and burning crosses. It's about teaching our younger generations that history comes from the lens of a white author. And so when you change those perspectives, it gives an level playing field of understanding of how other people view a colonization of a country. Mm-hmm. And so, when the Europeans came over, it became manifest destiny. God gave them the right to conquer the lands and spread west. Mm-hmm. And so from that point of view, it's divine intervention. And so God was giving them the hand to conquer these savages, these Indians, and it made it right by dehumanizing a particular race, group of individuals in this country that were already here. And to put into, more context, like Columbus Day. You celebrated Columbus Day from a European perspective, saying that this country was founded by someone not of this country, and you celebrate that. We have a federal holiday. You have days that you recognize this individual for finding something that we were already here. So just put in perspective, as a little Native kid learning this, in fifth grade, trying to find their place in the world and understanding that, how can I be found when I'm already here? And that sets the stage for this confusion in a country that doesn't have a lot of positive images of our community. You open the newspaper, you see the front page, you see, you see a lot of white faces. You look on the billboards, you see a lot of white faces. You look on the news, you see a lot of white faces. And in the Native community, it's really difficult for us to find those positive images of ourselves. And so we struggle to find those positive images, feelings, and perspectives to grasp. And it really starts from all this history. And so Donna is really speaking to that, is just finding that perspective and sharing that perspective. So, it's a perfect, segue to Thanksgiving. And when you talk about Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims, it's about 400 years, a celebration of when the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth, and probably almost to the date. I think it's September in 1620 where the Pilgrims landed, and so they came and they brought disease. They brought a method and mode of colonization that really came in, I guess, in the package of Christianity, came into structured religion. They came in as missionaries. They came in as a group of people, probably, with the best intentions of getting the best life on a new continent. But when you bring up Thanksgiving, you have to talk about the Wampanoag tribe. The Wampanoag tribe was the first contact of the Pilgrims, and they were put in a situation, we were helping people in need. And as Donna was saying, it didn't turn out so well because there was that Western encroachment. There was the need to establish a footprint on a land that already had individuals on it, tribes on it. So from that perspective, we have to really always talk about the Wampanoag people when we talk about Thanksgiving. And they're the first peoples, and there's still struggles. They still struggle with, the U.S. government, recognition, having their trust in treaty land taken away from them. There's a whole lot of kind of avenues to go with this conversation, but I think Donna really kind of hit it home when we talk about the founding components of education, and just learning from a different perspective really tells tale to how our education system really teaches us how to dehumanize non-white students. And I think that's kind of, we can go all over the place with that conversation. But, from my perspective, being, the vice chairman and always talking about, mascot issues, always talking about changing our curriculum in our school systems, finding positive male role models in our communities and elevating them to positions that give more visibility to our community, but also those positive role models for our young Native males as well. I think we share a lot of similarities, the Native community and the Black communities, that we do have a lot of those issues, but we also have a lot of resiliency. We have a lot of strong matriarchs in our communities that really lead the charge in bringing our families together in times like this. So when Thanksgiving comes around, we recognize that it's not really something that we celebrate, but, in some communities and a lot of families, it's more of a reclamation. We're going to reclaim this day, and we're going to make it our own. We're still going to spend some family together. We're going to make some food, and we're going to reclaim this day, and we're going to rewrite it as we go along. And so I think that's the biggest positive thing we can come out of this, is not always making us in this horrible light that everything's bad happened to us in the history, which it has. We want to reclaim these days, like Columbus Day, changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day. We're trying to take these over and rewrite the history as we go along, and with help from media like yourself, be able to tell the story from a perspective is very helpful for us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you so much. Listen, if you are tuned in, go ahead and share this live. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask the questions in the comment section, and we can ask our guests any questions that you have. Shani, do you have anything?
Yeah,
that you
I want to know more about the Dawes Act. You know, growing up, you know, hearing the stories, you know, every black person got Indian in them, you know, and I was told, you know, that we had a member of our family who was too dark to be considered Indian, and she was passed away when she was in line for reparations because she was too dark. And I think that that's a different act, but can you talk through some of the reparations for Natives and then also the Dawes Act, Brandon?
What the Dawes allotment did is, you know, there was a time where the U.S. government, after the genocide and removals, that the U.S. government started to strike treaties with tribes and giving them particular plots within the U.S. You know, sometimes it was historical Aboriginal territories, and many times it was a removal to another land. And so those treaties were struck with the tribes to recognize a particular land plot. You know, and this isn't all the tribes, but this is some particular tribes that were impacted by the Dawes Allotment Act, that they would set, let's say, take Oneida, for instance. We had the Buffalo Creek Treaty of 1938 that was struck with the U.S. government, and that was for a plot of land about 65,500 acres. And so what the Dawes allotment did was, because the Oneidas and most tribes in particular, you know, were still communal. So they allotted 65,000 acres that were based off of about 650 tribal members and gave them 100 acres. And so our community still congregated in general areas. And so a lot of that territory became unused, or in particular, you know, in the minds of non-Indians, became unused. And the Dawes Allotment Act was the unused portions of the reservation was either given away to settlers or non-Indians for the lack of use. And furthermore, there was the Burke Act that came along after the Dawes Allotment Act that would give authority to local magistrates or judges to deem territory or individuals incompetent. So if they didn't understand taxes, they didn't understand, you know, the way taxes, they couldn't speak English. There was a whole list of things. And in many cases, you can get a deed to your land after about 50 or so years of acting civilized. And so these particular amendments in the Dawes Allotment Act was more of a land grab for tribes to take away land that were afforded through treaty. And that really took a major toll on the land holdings that tribes had through the treaty era. So Oneidas we had about 3 million acres in upstate New York. Through Treaty of Canandaigua and, you know, a few other treaties, we moved to Wisconsin. We ceded 3 million acres, and minus there's still acres that we have up there from another Oneida tribe up there, to 65,000 square acres. And that was boiled all the way down because of the Dawes Allotment Act to a few hundred acres from 65,000 because of the Dawes Allotment Act. We almost lost everything. And these were these policies that were put into place to specifically take our land if we weren't being civilized. And this roll into the assimilation era, where they took away our children, sent them to boarding schools, taught them Christianity, cut off their hair, and, you know, taught them table manners. They taught them all these ways to what's what it called kill the Indian and save the man.
Wow.
And so this rolled all the way into just all these eras of federal Indian policy, not just bad actors. These were government-sponsored policies specifically for tribes to first eradicate us, remove us, then put us in boarding schools. And then the next era would have been the relocation era around the 60s, 70 years, where they took a lot of our men from the reservations and they sent them off to San Francisco, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, in hopes to get them off the reservation and give them an occupation. And so that occupation, that really split up the families. And so now you have a lot of transient individuals in those large cities that don't have a good connection, that want that connection back to the reservation, to their tribe, and they don't know how to get back. So that there's just policies after policies that really we're trying to get at the core of the tribes in our community.
Wow. I didn't hear that in school. I did hear rumors about what we would consider like a $5 Indian, somebody being able to purchase somebody being able to purchase the Native American reparations. I think this was like way before this time. Like when people were in line to, acknowledge themselves or to be, like labeled or get their paperwork certified as a Native American or indigenous person. We were told, or, there's myth in the Black community that white people were able to purchase into these benefits. And I actually believe that it's some historical, definitely background around this. I know a lot of historians, Hidden Colors touched on it in volume 5, of people being able to purchase the reparations. And I mean, it's a long time ago. Have you heard of that, Brandon?
I know when you got the land, it happened all over the country. People would go to auction and they would buy the land at a penny on the dollar. Once those lands would go up, they would deem them up for sale, and the auctions would come in. So this is where you really establish the wealth. There's a lot of wealth that was established back in that period of time where the Rockefellers and all that, the Manhattan was was purchased, by pennies on a dollar. And so a lot of this wealth was established, and this becomes institutional, institutional system, in our country, is that a lot of wealthy families in this country are wealthy specifically because of the land that was stolen from the tribes. Mm-hmm. And land holdings makes you a very rich person if you have a lot of land. And so back in the days, yes, they would purchase these land lots through auction on pennies on the dollar. And, it was for the sole purpose of getting Westerners or colonizers on Indian territory, because it was rich, lush land.
I have a question for you, a more current question. With COVID going on, how is are you on the reservation? That's one of the questions. Another question I have for you is, how are you guys handling COVID at this time?
I think COVID's hitting a lot of the reservations pretty hard because, like in all demographics, it's we always go back to the invisibility. We're always this, I see someone in the comments saying they call us something else because our demographics we don't have that critical mass to become a stat, because we're about 1% of the population. But on the reservation, we have a greater impact because we are one of the highest of all demographics with, the highest disparity rates with chronic diseases. And so, diabetes, heart disease, the list goes on, that Indian communities lead all of those, those negative stats. And when COVID hits here, it hits harder because we're in a position where we're already battling these chronic diseases at a difficult rate because of either lack of access to healthy foods or food swamps that have a lot of access to unhealthy foods like McDonald's, Hardee's, and so on and so forth. That COVID hits, if it hits an elder, that it's going to be a really difficult time for them to recover. And so our death rates are a lot higher than the rest of the countries. You look at Navajo Nation; it's ridiculously high because proximity of the tribal communities, and how, sometimes there's 10 people into a house, and that's just how they got to live. And so if COVID hits one of those houses, everyone's going to get it. And so I think we're doing okay here in Oneida. I am on the reservation. We're doing okay as much as we can. We're under a safe at home order. So we're trying to limit our travels to Green Bay and limit our out of our housing meetings together. And so it's really difficult, but it's I think we're getting the hang of it. But as much as we can, any other community is getting hit pretty hard. We're getting hit pretty hard here.
Well, you sound your community sounds like our community. We getting hit pretty hard too. I thought we had the highest number. I thought we were the highest in disparities and with diabetes and yada yada. But we have so much more in common than we would know unless we, communicate with one another. Are you guys open to taking the vaccine if they come out with a vaccine for COVID? And is this going to be on an individual base decision, or are you guys going to decide this together as a nation?
I definitely think it'll be on an individual basis. We will try to have, we have a different healthcare system on most of the reservations. It's called Indian Health Services. And it's because of those treaties that granted it, because they granted us healthcare and education and treaty and hunting rights, time immemorial. Because of those treaties, because we gave up the land, that land was prepaid for as long as, so our healthcare system is a little different. So we go through like a federal system. And so we will get those vaccines through the system when they come available. And so it will be an individual decision that will kind of decide how the community will get those vaccinations. But we will have that provided through our Indian healthcare system.
Can I speak to that question?
Please.
So I work in Milwaukee at the Native American Health Clinic there, the Gerald L. Ignace Indian Clinic. And so they're talking about having the vaccine coming out about December 11th. And there's going to be waves. So Indian Health Service will get a certain amount of vaccines. So each tribal nation will get them. And we're a urban Indian clinic. We're going to get so many, and we can only store so many at our facility. So therefore, the first wave is going to be healthcare workers. And then our doctor CEO has left it up to each individual that works at the healthcare facility, because we're all considered healthcare workers now, the option to get the vaccine or not. I personally am going to get it because I'm sometimes come in contact with clients at the door, and I don't want to, I would just like to get, I would personally want to get the vaccine so I can be immune to it. And then the next wave is going to be the elderly that are in facilities like the nursing homes and the ones that have the underlying conditions that Brandon talked about. So they're going to be in waves, and definitely I'm going to take the vaccine. It's up to each individual, even each person in every tribe, whether or not they want to take it. On a spiritual level, I've heard elders talk about how this is really a bad spirit and how we need to go inside and start, looking deep inside ourselves for change. And they're telling us to drink a lot of cedar tea and to smudge a lot with cedar and sage. So they're saying that we probably, like I've heard some elders say that, because we're not taking care of things, that this bad spirit came upon us to help us remember what we're supposed to be doing.
So, okay. When I think about, so what is going to happen say the majority of the tribe decides to take the vaccination, and then you have a very few who decide they won't take the vaccination. Do you see that maybe causing an issue on the reservation as far as people who decide that they don't want to take the vaccination?
Yeah, it becomes a conversation about who has access to our public facilities, and this question has been talked about a lot. About how do we recognize someone who has taken the vaccine? There's questions about having like wristbands and whatnot, and it's almost like a new world order type thing. But it's a conversation we have yet to wrestle around with, since we're still right in the middle of the pandemic. With the early parts of the vaccinations, coming, there's always going to be worry about, is this, how effective it's going to be. The flu is still, been around this long. Flu vaccinations, it still doesn't have, 100% protection, but it's still a good precautionary measure. And so as treatments come out, I think these are the things that, it's definitely a great question is in how does the communities, tackle the issue about those who don't take the vaccines, who still could, spread COVID-19 to other individuals that may not have vaccinations yet, or if the vaccinations aren't 100% preventable for the disease.
I just want to remind everybody of the Tuskegee experiment of 1932 and 1972, when the United States government vaccinated the African American community, and they intentionally gave them syphilis. So, I mean, when it comes to discussions about a vaccination, I'm not the one to agree to take it, under any circumstances. That's just me. That's just me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not. I'm just.
I don't know.
I'm just
we
not
have
agreeing.
these conversations about the colonizers, and the colonizers are the same ones.
They're the
who
same
giving
people.
us these vaccines. So I'll just
Same
kind of be
people.
like, I don't
A little
know.
cautious.
But
Smallpox.
I am shocked that she said December 11th.
Right.
Because what I was thinking was, the black community gonna get hit first with this vaccination. Whenever it come out, they coming after us. They coming after our most vulnerable, our elders, the sickly, yada yada. But December 11th is like that's
a couple weeks.
That's like in a couple weeks that people have to make a decision on whether or not they're gonna get this vaccine, and they are going straight for the indigenous community first. And you guys have a different healthcare setup, which I didn't like. I'm not very well versed in.
Can I
that
can I
either.
interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean that we're going to get the vaccinations first. We are all going to get. They will be distributed to white and mainstream society clinics, Indian Health Service clinics, Indian clinics, all at not at. We're not going to be first.
Oh,
No,
clinics, the essentials.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wasn't saying that's not what I was saying.
Okay.
I was saying that, first will be healthcare workers, no matter who you
Okay,
are,
gotcha,
white,
gotcha.
black, red, yellow, pink.
Gotcha.
And then, the elderly, because statistically those are the ones that are dying the most because of the underlying conditions. And children will not be allowed to vaccinate. They're not doing it for children. The statistics in Milwaukee and the ones that our CEO shows us, and he's a doctor, The children are not getting it at high rates at all. They're just very, very minimal. And if they do get it, they're not dying from it. So
I just think that it's too early, for them to be stamping an approval on a vaccination when it takes, I think a sister just said that HN1 vaccination was recalled 3 times. We don't even know what type of side effects these vaccinations are going to have because the trial period or the test periods haven't been long enough to determine what that's going to look like. What are the side effects? That's what I want to know.
Well, I've been told that the side effects are could be sore muscles, headaches, but I'm hearing this all from our CEO, who's a doctor and who's getting his information from I don't know where, but so I'm not a medical expert.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating what I've heard.
I just want to get the same vaccination that the Rockefellers and all those people are going to get. Put me in line with them because they're not going to give them the bad stuff. Give me what you're going to get a Queen of England.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I'm hearing
it's
also
totally
that
understandable, like what everybody's saying. I mean, I get it. There's just a lot of mistrust, and
Absolutely.
that's why it's to each his own. They're going to have to decide.
Do you
what
think
they're
that
gonna
it'll
do.
be able to help surveillance us? Because a lot of research that's going around is saying that this is not just the normal vaccination. It's something that may have like a metal piece or something that will be used under 5G in order to track us. And I know that a lot of people who are Christian believe that it's going to be the mark of the beast.
I think that's a what do you call that?
Conspiracy theory.
An unscientific theory. I don't know. I just don't think that's.
I think
don't.
we're talking about the
What
same
personally?
people, the same people, the colonizers, the same people who are trying to control, and they're losing control, and they're doing everything and anything to keep and maintain control. And I think that when we talk about vaccinations, we really have to be strategic, because 1932, 1972, that wasn't too long ago, and they're still doing stuff like that to this day. So I just opt out. I don't trust it. I don't trust it for my children. I don't trust it for myself. And I'm gonna have to move somewhere if I'm gonna be required to.
I'm trying to come stay with y'all on the reservation. Y'all like, listen, we taking it, sister. Don't come on over here.
Refugees.
Yeah, please.
Speaking of refugees, as far as let's get to
Angela said she
Aziza's
wants-
question
yes.
before we don't want to pass up on the questions. Hey, we want everybody to go ahead and share this live. If you have questions, we're going back through the questions, and then we can move on. I have a couple questions. Yeah, let's go to Aziza's question. Aziza has a question for us, guys.
Oh, okay.
Angela says they can track me, but they get bored fast.
Okay, Aziza wants to know, what is life on a reservation like? Does living on a reservation mean that you live outside of the American system? We can't hear you, Brandon. You're on mute.
Yeah. It really depends on where, because there's, with the Western encroachment, they threw some on, a lot of the tribes on horrible land. And we got lucky because we're on, the port of Green Bay, which it became kind of, populated here. And there's nothing really special about us, doing anything, differently here, but we're like, a small city. So if you come on our reservation, you won't really see too much if you're not looking. But if you come into some of our, in the Black community, it might be called projects. We got housing here that, probably similar to almost like Section 8 housing. And so we have a lot of communities that you drive in, you can definitely tell they're federal housing. And then this was at the very beginning, the 70s, 80s, when we started to take those federal monies and we started to build these homes, and they're like cookie cutter homes that, nothing really good, about them. And now we take those federal monies and we add our own little touch to them. We make them a lot better, make our communities look as good as we can. But then if you go out west, they're in some very desolate areas. And there's, no foot traffic through there. There's, no economic opportunities there. They're on wastelands, and you can tell you have to live off the grid in some cases. You have no running water. You have limited access to electricity. You have to go to the store, once, every couple weeks. And so there's a lot of different, depending on where you're at. Yeah, I would say we're very fortunate here in Oneida. You go on the Navajo reservation, you go to Pine Ridge, there's definitely trade-offs. There's lack of access to a lot of things, but because of where they're at, they were not allowed. I apologize for saying that. They were able to maintain their language and culture a lot more easier because, the communal aspect. When we have encroachment on a metropolitan area, our kids can do a lot more unculture and language related. And so, you have strong languages out in Lakotas, Navajo, you have strong connections out there. And it really just goes to where you're at. You go up north, you have the Ojibways. They have really strong language programs up there, and you have a lot of language speakers. Where in Oneida, we don't have that many language speakers here, and it's a lot difficult for us to maintain that, sense of urgency that a lot of tribes have with their language and culture.
So can you own your own home on a reservation, or is everything by rental agreement?
I'd like to add to that a little bit, the question. So the question was,
Can you own?
if you're living on the reservation, are you separated from like American life? Is that something like that?
Well, no, the American system.
Yeah. So we're dual citizens. So I am a citizen of my tribe, which is Bad River, Ojibwe, which is way up north. And then I'm also an American citizen. And in 1924, I believe that's when we became, America granted us First Nations people citizenship in America. And the reason why they did that was because a lot of our men were and women were going into this armed forces to fight the war. So they were like, well, they're fighting the war for us, World War I and II. So we'll make them citizens. Many of the kids that are, on reservation life, like he said, there's a lot more cultural things for the kids to do and learn. And some of them have tribal schools, like the Oneida Turtle School, they have that, and the language schools, immersion schools and all that, but they're just like regular kids. You go to an Indian house and there's, they're playing video games and they're playing with, Bert and Ernie dolls and, so I mean, they're really, it's just the borders. It's like the borders are invisible, right? But mainstream has gotten into the reservations and they love to go to the cities and go shopping and to the next town and, go to, get an ice cream or whatever. So they're not totally secluded from American way of life. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for that. We have another question about ownership. Can you own your own home on a reservation, or is everything by lease, I believe?
I think Carlos just answered that. He said from the Navajo Nation, you can you have a lease, but you can't sell for profit. Is that correct? Brandon, you're on mute again.
Sorry, I got some kids moving around the background. Different tribes have different programs. Here on the here on Oneida Reservation, we have a variety of programs and housing selections. Definitely much in need of housing still, but we have rentals. We have mutual aid houses, which if you pay for a certain period of time, the house becomes yours. And then we have home we have home ownership programs. We have programs where we give you a lease to the land and you can build your own homes on them. So we have a variety of programs that help get housing for individuals. And the difficulty is we're not, when you're in a system, when you don't have a lot of, I guess, upward movement and no real, I guess, models for like home ownership. If I'm as a young individual come into a home, I don't know how to take care of home. I don't know, how to do a lot of things, home improvements. So maintaining a home is kind of a daunting thing on the reservation. And so we try to build these programs up to making sure that you understand the responsibility of home ownership and getting that, I guess, breaking out of the shell and moving up, to something of your own. It's a difficult task because it's really easy to get a rental agreement. You just have to go. You don't have to cut your grass. You don't have to do a lot of things, and it becomes very easy. So the system, this federal system, really is built, I think, has been built to keep us at a status quo poverty level. So you continue to get federal funds, and you don't build on those systems like Oneida Nation has done. You continually to build more low-income housing, and you continue to fill them in with low-income families. And so there has to be that next step up. This is me as a tribal leader thinking, is you have to have that step up for individual tribal members to grow into, a smaller home and give them that, those programs around it to help you take care of the home and, learn about financing, learn about, savings and all these things that they don't teach you in school. It's part of that colonized world that we know it's reality, that we have to learn about. We have to learn about our finances. We have to learn about wealth management. And that really helps keep money in the reservation by building our schools, by building our economic systems, by building up our entrepreneurs, giving them corridors, giving them visibility to the outside the reservation vendors that might come in and do business with them. So it's a whole system that it's tough to break out of. And just like the Black communities, you try to keep your money black. We try to keep our money red, keep them in the community and keep that multiplier. So the small business person is going to spend their money, their revenue on another business on the reservation. And so I think that's the whole mode we're really trying to get into. It's just really difficult because there's not a lot of access for a lot of tribes for those economic opportunities.
I think we should make our money black and red. Then we'll have more money. How about that?
Let's do it.
Let's work on that. I got y'all. Y'all got me? I got y'all. Let's do that. Another question that Britta has: is there a fear of losing? What did she say? Is there a fear of losing land? I'm sorry. Is there a fear that if you don't use all the land, that it could be taken or sold to make use of? So is there a fear that if you don't use all the land, that it'll be taken from you guys?
I guess for me, yeah, as a government, when we operate a government, we buy, we've lost nearly almost all the 65,000 square acres. But over the years, we've been aggressive in purchasing land back and putting our footprint back. And so I think we're about, owning, about 42% of the reservation back. Mm-hmm. And so the new Dawes Allotment Act is urban sprawling and eminent domain. And so if we're not building, or preserving land the way we want to, creating laws on the reservation that benefit not only the residents of the tribe, but the general community and the ecosystem, we'll get that continued urban sprawl. And so we want to make our land the way it looked like, hundreds of years ago, because right now you got a bunch of farmland that just crop rows. We're rebuilding those wetlands to making sure our ecosystem is benefiting, for sustainability's sake for the next 7 generations. So if we're not rebuilding those wetlands that re-energize the aquifer, that next 7 generations might not have water. And so we're always thinking ahead to making sure that urban sprawling is a detriment to our future generations if we don't contain it and limit it and regulate it. And so eminent domain and urban sprawling are definitely the new Dawes Allotment Act. So we have to be on top of that, making sure we're understanding the impacts of keeping the land the way it's meant to be, but also that the other communities understand that as well.
Wow, 7 generations ahead. That's quite a look ahead.
Thank you, Michael.
Is that mine? No, it's not mine. I have a question. Let's talk about 7 generations back. So, do you know, Donna and Brandon, and Laura, what your ancestors' stance was when it came to slavery in America, and what your relation was to African Americans here?
That's a good question.
That is a good question. Ooh.
Donna, you're
Donna,
on
you're
mute.
on mute.
Okay, I personally don't know what their stance was 7 generations back.
That was just
But-
being facetious. I was kidding about the 7 generations. I mean, just like in
Just
the
in
beginning,
general.
like
Yeah.
1616 time, when slavery.
Because truthfully being
Chattel
told,
slavery.
you know what I'm saying, Africans were here before Americans, and they had established a trade systems with the natives. So, I mean, they didn't just come over here in a slave ships.
Right.
So what is the relationship with your tribe and Africans?
Not very much today. I don't know what the historical relationship was. I know the Ojibwe of northern Wisconsin, Bad River. I know we had a lot of dealings with the French fur trade. I will say that one of my friends took one of those DNA tests, and he's Ojibwe, and he said he had African ancestry in him. I said, wow. So, I mean, who knows? It's possible. But I know that also there's a book called Black Indians. I personally, believe that there is a lot of intermarriage in our history. There had to be.
I'm sorry.
Especially the Underground Railroad. I believe that there was probably a lot of tribes too that helped, free some of the slaves, give them safe journeys to the north. But yeah, there is a book called Black Indians, and there are different court cases too, where somebody was asking about. They're often told, like right here, Aziza, Courtney.
Yep.
Lots of African Americans claim Native ancestry because they have oral family history, but are often told they have no Native ancestry. That is true. There was a court case, I believe, that there was a young lady that had to fight to be on her tribal roll, and she was Black. But I know a lot of Black Indians. I know a couple, right off the top of my head that are friends of mine. They're part Choctaw, and that's a southern tribe. And another lady, So I believe that.
Yeah, I would say Oneida has a very long history in the Native American, American history, and so we are considered America's first allies, and so through treaty, George Washington asked us, not through treaty, but he asked Oneidas if he would help us in the Revolutionary War And so Oneidas did answer that call, more so just a person, just to contain, the war, because British were an onslaught, over and over, trying, burning up our villages and crops. But we joined them in the Revolutionary War, and we have documented, actually my great grandpa, I think it's 4 greats, he was a Civil War veteran, and so fought on the side of the Union. I also have a great uncle that fought on the side of the Union in the Civil War. And so, we had a long history, Oneidas do, with armed conflict in the United States, fighting on, on the side of, freedom and liberty. But back then we had to fight under white names because we weren't citizens yet. And so usually under the names of white draft dodgers and abandoners. And so that's how we had to fight back then. We had to fight under, other assumed names. And usually because we're in the North, and we had strong relationships in the colonies, the northern colonies, that we fought on the side of the Union when we did.
Wow. So I think the question, I don't know whose phone that is, but I think the question was more in terms of, like the relationship, like with the Africans, like the Olmecs. Everybody talk about the Olmec Indians and the natives, or the people who obviously look like they're Africans. Mm-hmm. They have statues, the Seminoles and things like that. And then when I mentioned that earlier with Africans or black people, natives who look black, who were turned away from getting the Native American rights, the benefits, the reparations. So I think that's what the question was, what I'm saying, trying to uplift and highlight.
Yeah, the difficulty that is understanding, this goes again to the federal system. And Donna talked about the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934. And so that act, if a tribe would go under an IRA, Indian Reorganization Act constitution, it formalized in a template style constitution that the tribes will go under. And in most cases, in that constitution, there was a blood quantum requirement. And so that established a pedigree, basically, that you had to prove and show through blood and lineage that you are eligible to be on the rolls in the membership of a particular tribe. In Oneida, it's a quarter blood. And so they did the rolls back then, based on the allotments, and then they did another roll in like the 60s and it updated. And so you had to base a claim of descendancy by blood to be on the rolls. And so that just further kind of fractionated, I guess I would say at the time, reservation Indians. You had to be on the reservation in a particular time. You had to be on the rolls at a particular time to be acknowledged. And so we had some probably even non-Oneidas on our rolls specifically because they were on the reservation and just got included. And so there's a lot of things that kind of wrote. I mean, this is a rabbit hole for sure. And it's more about identity than anything. And so when you have, a black and Indian individual, they're fighting this inner fight of identity because in some cases they aren't accepted because they don't have enough blood to be eligible, and the thought of not being accepted because you might have black features on an Indian reservation, because and I'll be very honest, there are some, I would say, we could be very judgmental on the reservation as well. That if you don't look Indian, you might not, be accepted based on your looks. and your upbringing, where you're from. It goes into a lot of different sections. You might be an or urban Indian, black Indian, and that all really kind of boils down into identity. And so this is the conversation we're having on every single reservation about what makes you a tribal member. Is it the feeling, the intrinsic value you have on the belief system, language, and culture? Or is it looks? Is it blood? Is it where you live? So these conversations are happening in almost any reservation across the country about what is it that makes you Oneida? What is it that makes you Ojibwe? And so it's a very good question that kind of leads into a bigger rabbit hole of that almost every community is wrestling with now is how do you accept individuals that first and foremost set of criteria, but then secondly have been impacted by decades and a century of intentional U.S. policy that was trying to limit the identity of tribes and the individual, trying to disperse us across the country, trying to take away our language and culture, trying to take us away from our land. And it's hard to really, really think about that when individual doesn't have one clue of who they are. It's probably because the U.S. government had the very intention to do that. To not include them in the discussion is very harmful for all of us.
Absolutely.
Are you guys allowed to have anyone else living on your reservation? So, say you intermarry, or I don't know, you make a friend. Can they come and live on the reservation with you?
Can I come?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'd like to also add to what Brandon was saying about the blood quantum. I have a really interesting story. So I am Ojibwe and Oneida, and my dad was Hungarian and German. And half of me my ancestors came through Ellis Island. I got the research and the genealogy, and then half of me is from Turtle Island. But what's really interesting is my mother, she was on the Oneida Rolls, and she was a full-blood Indian, but she was she made the quarter cut to be on the Oneida Rolls. And my family was the Websters. There's a lot of Websters. But me, I only have an eighth, according to if she has a quarter. I'm not allowed to be on the Oneida Rolls. So, but then you go back to my tribe that I'm enrolled in, Ojibwe, Bad River, they go by ancestry. So all I had to do was prove that my grandmother was Ojibwe from Bad River, and I was able to get enrolled there. Now, each tribe makes that decision. They can, like, if Oneida wanted to change it to an eighth, they could, right? Ain't that right, Brandon? If my tribe in Bad River wanted to change it to a quarter from ancestry, which they could do that as a tribal government. When he talked about the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, that's when we as Native people went from traditional leadership with the clan systems to the contemporary way of leadership, which kind of copies the American government, I guess, in a way, with the tribal council and all that. So I just wanted to add that because blood quantum is just it. Initially, I think the government wanted us to have a blood quantum so that they would eventually breed us out, another form of genocide.
I know that they tried to just some history facts when we do talk about these Black Indians, Black Natives, and we talk about the 5 tribes from the South with the Cherokee Nation. or Cherokee tribe, I'm sorry, the government intentionally put a stumbling block in between natives and Africans because they would intermarry. So they would try to use like a Willie Lynch kind of system against both the nationalities as well, because they would say, okay, we'll treat you, we own all of you as slaves, but we'll treat this slave a little bit better than this slave, because the native slave, if they get away, they'll go tell their tribe, and the tribe will come back, and now we'll have a war. But if the African slave ran away, they would get caught and probably brought back or dead, because they would never be able to make it all the way back home in order to tell their big brothers to come back. You know what I mean? So they would intentionally try to divide us that way and cause a division between us as well. So like the quantum theory that they have as far as the blood and yada yada and how that works, I definitely agree that it is a form of genocide as well.
There's also a lot of books about this. I know Ivan Van Sertima talked about the Olmec Native Americans, and he said that, you know, Africans were able to run away to those tribes and they weren't able to get caught, you know, so there was some type of, you know, similarities in the looks and how they look. So I mean, I think that, you know, it's not just all a blood thing, you know, when it comes to some of these tribes. And I think it's just something that we probably need to investigate, because our history books haven't reported the stories correctly. We're all getting misinformation and miseducated, you know, with the American history system or education system. And you guys talked about Franklin D. Roosevelt too. You know, one of the things Franklin D. Roosevelt, you know, former president who gets so many accolades, he was so good at the divide and conquering of our nation. You know, he put so many different stipulations and labels on people. You know, we got to go back before that time when we're talking about, you know, who we are as a people. Because if we're using this as the benchmark, the 32nd president as the benchmark on who we are and how we identify race, I mean, this man pretty much cut up the Native Americans, the Hispanic Americans versus Black Americans. I mean, this is divide and conquer right here. I mean, we really need to go back and reinvestigate and rewrite our history books, because our kids are being miseducated, especially, I mean, from this conversation, we learned so much, you know what I'm saying?
I learned so much from these three. This is
definitely
amazing.
This is great conversation.
I didn't like the boarding school. I didn't know they did boarding school, cut the ponytail. I didn't know all of that.
I thought you guys had reparations. Y'all was living good on a reservation. Y'all got to go to college for free.
So do you guys
y'all get a
ever
check
have,
every month?
is it ever a conversation or a thing in order to escape this like federal way of doing things, because you guys were here before the colonizers showed up? Like it kind of seemed like how they portrayed it to us in school is like, you guys live on pretty much this resort
for free,
and it's
you get a
because
check.
Everybody in America owed you, and you made a deal. And then now I'm starting to hear more of a confines as like almost a prison, like a concentration camp almost. But the positive thing is you get to hold on to your culture. You guys get to be close knit. You know, you still get to live on the land. So I'm kind of still torn about like the what is it like to be on a reservation question. Because like, do I want my family to have like this kind of reservation mindset idea? And now like my tribe of people are like, we're going to go buy up some land and we're going to live like the natives do on a reservation. And the government can have X, Y, and Z stipulations over us type thing.
I think it's a great concept, but I think that the government has stopped them and they don't have the resources that they need to build up their nations. I think somebody mentioned that they don't have working plumbing, you know, throughout the reservation. That's a small fix. Getting skilled people to fix that in those areas, or, you know, just getting your people skilled to do the work. I mean, those are small fixes. I love the idea of a reservation, but I don't like the idea of the government being in control of everything. And then also your health system. Like, that is just that's scary for me, you know, personally.
Brandon is itching right now.
He is. I see
Go
it.
ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead, Brandon.
There's a dichotomy there, because it's when our chiefs signed the treaty to cede our territories, we were promised things in the future. We were promised healthcare, we were promised education, we were promised access to the land for hunting and fishing. And so it's a difficulty to say we don't want this federal money because it's from the federal government. It comes with a lot of strings. But on the other hand is we have to get something for that land. Ceding 3 million acres up in upstate of New York, you know, it has to amount to something. And so it's continuing to work with Congress. It's continuing to work with the President of the United States. It's continuing to get more Native women in Congress. You know, you got Deb Haaland, you got Sharice Davids, who are now, you know, in members of the House. And it's getting more visibility. It's getting more of those individuals who understand from the tribal perspective on how to change the federal system to benefit tribes. So it's just, here's your money, no strings attached. Tribes, you can do whatever you need to do with it. So it's more like, you know, the granting system. So it's difficult for us to really be in that world and have that same conversation, because they're almost competing interests. Taking the federal money keeps us in the system, but if we don't take the federal money, we gave that land away for free. And so it's always competing, and so it's always going to DC. It's always going to the Capitol and talking with the legislature to say, you know, we need this money. We need more of it. You promised it. Your founding fathers promised it. And we need to formulate, you know, better funding systems as a result. And I will go to say it's kind of difficult having conversations like this without having all the information, because we're learning so much. Tribes or Indians are the only ones specifically mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. And so you will look back in Section 1, let me see, what is it? Section 1. Article 1, Section 2, Indians not taxed. It would go Section 1, and would it be Article? So I'm saying that all wrong. It's Article 1, Section 2 is Indian not taxed. Section 8 is the Commerce Clause, and would be Article 6 would be all treaties made by the government are the supreme law of the land. And so that's in the Constitution, in the U.S. Constitution, that they're teaching all our kids to. And they don't ever say anything about that to our kids, about how we have a separate, very articulate way the U.S. government interacts with tribes. And so you look in the U.S. Constitution, it says that right in the Constitution, and they don't say one lick of that when you learn in the Constitution. And so that's why it's a little different for tribes. That's why our agreements, you know, we have to remind the President of the United States, you know, U.S. Congress, that you have a responsibility to tribes in Constitution, and you're not meeting your responsibilities. And so that's why it's a critical conversation we have. That the question that you just asked is, you know, we need different funding agreements. We need more funding, and how do we interact with the U.S. government, because we do have to interact with municipalities, states, cities, and whatnot, and other communities, and to really go to how we can interact more, as you know, like the conversation before. How do we keep, you know, our money black? How do we keep our money red? How do we start, you know, really organizing our efforts so we can all bring each other up? Because, you know, they ain't gonna do it for us.
That's right.
we start finding solutions for ourselves and start, connecting our communities. I think this is really the answer is, how do we do this?
How do we galvanize and organize on this? Definitely.
Brandon, you should tell them about what the United States Constitution was based on.
Oh,
That's a whole nother hour and a half segment.
Oh no.
Donna kicking up trouble. Come on, Donna. I love it.
Well, he knows it's based on the Iroquois Confederacy. And him and I are both Oneida, and it's part of the whole Confederacy of Cayugas, Tuscaroras, Mohawks, and the Oneidas, right? Did I say right?
yeah, and
They took our way of governing ourselves under the Iroquois Confederacy, the 5 tribes, the 5 nations, and they took that and they based the Constitution on the way we governed ourselves. How many of you learned that in school?
I didn't learn it in school, but I did learn it.
I'm learning it right now. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah. And so, well, I'm gonna have to get going, but I just want to tell you thank you. And Brandon, it was really nice meeting you. Very nice meeting you. You're very knowledgeable and you're a great leader for our Oneida Nation. And I'm just very proud of you. And thank you to you 3 ladies for inviting me, but I'm going to have to cut out.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Donna.
much. We'll have to meet again. We'll have to meet like this again, Miss Donna, so that you guys, there's not a silence and that we have communication. You know what I mean? So that we can achieve these goals.
And
Can you give that lady my email address? She had questions on how to research her ancestry.
Absolutely will.
But
Absolutely.
it's YaHolaDonna@gmail.
All right.
YaHolaDonna@gmail. Let me put that in here.
And Donna, can you tell us goodbye in your language? I know you welcomed and you told us
Okay.
hello.
So we never say goodbye.
Oh,
So we
okay.
just say until we meet each other again.
Okay.
And we say in Ojibwe, Gigawabamin Minawanaguch, until we see each other again.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Until we see each other again.
Thank you.
All right. Miigwe.
All right. Did you have any more questions, or are we, you know what I'm saying? Are we on information overload?
I'm on information.
So
I
much
gotta watch
info.
this back a couple times.
So much.
This was a lot. We
It
need to do
was.
this again, though. We
Brandon, can
definitely
you
do it again.
tell us how we can find you, or how our listeners would be able to find you? Can you drop your social media handles, please, if you have any?
sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, just tell us.
Okay. Yeah, you can look me up. It'd be under Brandon Yellowbird Stevens. Let's see. Yeah. And then Instagram, I would be Ybird4
Okay.
on Instagram.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Becca, did you have anything?
I feel like we just been interrogating this man the entire time.
I
Do you have
know.
anything for us, Brandon?
He dropped knowledge.
So how can we join the reservation?
When can we move in?
Yeah, it's just a bigger conversation on how we do that, because, we don't learn a lot of stuff either as far as outside, the Black community. I learned a lot from you guys as well, as far as, the trade, before American was first established in their eyes. It's just really how to connect those dots. And, there's a bigger picture for us, to look forward to. And it's just how to do that. We try so hard and we become so entrapped in our own bubble that, we have our own issues to solve, that it's hard to kind of seek outside that, that other communities are answering those questions as well. And I think, sometimes, inner city, north side Milwaukee, answer might fit, west side Green Bay, question. I say it's just really getting our communities involved with each other, getting our leaders involved with each other and kind of experiencing, eyes, through a different lens.
Absolutely. And educating one another on each other's experiences. I know a lot of people are not, familiar, or they don't like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or Louis Farrakhan, and they say it all the time. The reason that systematic supremacy exists is because we don't know the contributions of one another. Mm-hmm. And if we sit down, have these conversations, learn each other's stories, and come to the table and start creating and writing our own history books, we can change this situation and this nation.
Oh, definitely.
Or just leave and come to the reservation with Brandon.
Y'all gonna stop trying to get to his reservation, okay?
I'm just saying.
Unless it's a field trip. No, but I think it's a lot that we can learn from you. And we will definitely be having meetings again. Probably not like this, more of a private meeting. So that we can all have those like necessary conversations that we need to have. I definitely would like to speak with you guys like before and after the vaccination, and kind of get more information about your experience.
Yes.
With your decisions and so forth. So yeah, we thank you so much. We thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
For helping put all of this together. Let me tell you about Laura. So the whole time I'm working with Laura, right? She protesting with us, she running with us. We running together. I'm thinking Laura is like Puerto Rican or something, maybe half Mexican and Puerto Rican. But something said, reach out to Laura about this. I'm like, I ain't finna call Laura right now. Then I'm like, all right, let me reach out to her. She's like, oh, yeah, I'm half Native. She's like, no, I'm indigenous. I was like, this whole time I didn't even know. But now I do, and I thank you. I learned so much. I appreciate that. Do you have any questions? Come on, get it while it's hot. Laura's daughter is in the studio with us.
What's your daughter's name?
Sarah.
Shout out to Sarah.
She's a young adult.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you for being here and allowing us to have you on. And like I said, we will reach out to you sometime soon.
Yes.
Can you tell us thank you in your language?
Yuanko. Yuanko means thank you.
Yuanko.
Yuanko. And you would say yo as like an acknowledgement.
Yo,
I like it.
Wait. Yuanko.
Yuanko.
No, we say thank you to you.
Yeah,
Yuanko.
Yo.
Awesome. Listen, if you want to connect with Revolution Ready, you can connect with us at revolutionready.wi@gmail.com. You can also check us out on our website that is still in construction right now. So don't go to my website talking stuff. Don't go to my website talking crazy. It ain't done yet, okay?
Yes.
What about any contributions, sis?
revolutionready.org. You can contribute there, or you can go to our Cash App at $Revolution Ready. That is really easy. Or checks can be written out to Revolution Ready LLC. You can look up Shawnee B on Facebook or Rebecca Burrell on Facebook.
Because she dope as hell.
But please follow our Revolution Ready LLC page. And we also have some stuff coming up for Burlington School District. We have not let go of the reins. We are definitely on top of things still. Even though I told Laura, listen, I'll do a vigil for somebody that ain't listen. I love y'all and I'm gonna stand with y'all, but I'm finna let the public know. I don't know why we having a vigil. First of all, I don't even know why we have vigils. But I mean, I know why we have vigils. I don't do vigils. But if somebody definitely did not die, I don't know why we doing a vigil. Well, power to the people.
Died.
This is what happens. This is what happens when never mind. Listen,
We feel you.
I'm gonna be standing in solidarity with my peoples that live out in Burlington. My dear sister Laura. But listen here, when certain people start making moves, you do weird stuff. And I'm just letting y'all know that's weird.
Maybe it's a visual,
As hell.
a visual for the death of white supremacy.
No. The devil white
trying to
supremacy
help out
don't even
here.
get no vigil. Hold on.
Right,
We'll-
don't get no visual.
I'm
Y'all
trying to
don't
help
even
out
get
here.
no proper
We're not
burial.
mourning that
We
day.
ain't- right. No. But we will be there to support our sisters that are there. But I am gonna tell y'all weird as hell. And I'm not gonna be quiet about it.
I mean, we all been living in Burlington, so you know. So,
Y'all weird. I love
but-
y'all though. That don't mean I love
Shout
y'all.
out to
Just mean y'all
Burlington.
weird. Burlington, we coming for you. November
Yes.
30th, we will be there in the outside vigil building.
2 days.
We will be We'll be meeting at 2 p.m. at Echo Park in Burlington, and then we will be having a car caravan in protest of the blatant racism that the Burlington Area School District has been supporting, and the ridiculous abuse that children of color have been handed at the hands of white students within Burlington. We've had our babies had their teeth knocked out of their mouth. They've been pushed downstairs. They're being called the N-word and any other racial slur on a daily basis with zero support from the school board, the school district. And usually they are the ones being reprimanded while the students that are white are sent back to class to continue on happily about their day.
And we ain't going for it.
No.
Taylor, listen, she said, throw white supremacy in a mass grave like they did the Jews.
Ooh.
Ooh, she,
Big dot.
well,
I don't know if that's appropriate.
Is it too soon?
It's a little too soon. I get what she was getting at,
Yeah.
but
That's a little
Yikes.
bit. Well,
Y'all
we
know,
didn't
no,
say
she
it.
mean
She
do
just
them
read
do
it.
them as bad as they did
Right.
the Jews. That's
Yes.
what she's saying. She's
I
not
get
saying
it.
that about
I get what she was trying to
Okay.
say.
Listen
I
here.
get it.
Also, if you would like to promote your business on Revolution Ready, usually we get about 1,000 listeners, but we reach over 5,000 people. So if you would like to promote your business on Revolution Ready, go ahead and send me that email at revolutionready.wi@gmail.com.
All right.
And we love y'all.
Thank you. Until next week.
Until next week. Ow.